Present.
Alderman Huntley, present. I need a motion to amend the agenda to include SA 2325. Do I see a motion to amend the agenda?
Move approval of the amended agenda, including SA 2325.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right, moving on to approval of our minutes. Are there any changes to the special meeting minutes for the Finance Committee from 12/11/24?
They're not attached.
They're not.
Oh, they are not.
Mr. Chair, I'll move that we postpone action on the minutes since we don't have them attached.
Excellent. Thank you for
Second.
noticing that. All those in favor of postponing say aye.
Aye.
Aye. So moved. Moving along to our supplemental appropriations. I see we have Captain Miguez here, so let's start with that one. The SA 1725 Forfeiture and Seizure Fund, FY 2024 fund balance. Good morning.
Good morning, Captain
Morning.
Amy Miguez with Annapolis Police, and this is Craig Medley, who's our in our budget office.
So I understand we are allocating $368,215 from our FY 2024 fund balance to contractual services, supplies and others, and capital outlay. Could you just tell us a little bit about what specifically, if you know, those are going to go to?
Yeah, so the forfeiture and seizure fund, first of all, those monies come from forfeitures and seizures that
Makes
are
sense.
made mostly by the HIDTA, the High Intensity Drug Task Force group that one of our officers is a member of. And those fund an office, off-site office for some of our detectives to work out of. So the funds are related to the rent, the utilities, and other things for that office. And leased vehicles for those detectives as well.
Any questions?
May I ask, where is that office?
That's something that we don't put out because it's a place where
Okay.
undercover officers may go, where confidential informants may go, things like that. So it's not something that we
Okay.
put out there.
I was going to ask if it was in a certain location, and I'm glad I didn't ask that question. So I'm good, thank you.
Happy to address that off.
Yeah, I'm aware, so thank you.
No questions.
All right, seeing no further questions, all those in favor? Oh, I'm
Mr.
sorry.
Chair will make a motion to give a favorable recommendation to SA 1725.
Thank you very much,
Second.
Alderwoman. All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. Thank you very much for being here today, guys.
Happy holiday. Thank you.
All right, I guess we will tackle SA 2325. Yes. You guys want to come on up? Thank you. Thank you very much for being here today, guys. And in particular, thanks for being there last night at the Santa Run. That was great to sort some presents with you last night.
It was a pleasure.
So, yeah, if you guys, I think this is something that we've all heard a fair amount about, but if you guys want to just give us a quick introduction, and then I'll open the floor to questions. Thank you.
Absolutely. Dale McConich, Environmental Programs Coordinator. So we've talked about this a few times now. This is a supplemental appropriation for $105,000 for the creation of a electric leaf blower voucher program. This is in response to Ordinance 2823. I'm sure we're all aware, goes into effect January 1st. The gas-powered leaf blower ban within the city of Annapolis. So we received many complaints, particularly from landscaping companies, that they will not be able to use their leaf blowers in residential areas, which is where a lot of their contracts come from. And this is a significant financial burden. There are 20 landscaping businesses within the city of Annapolis, and there are more which do business in the city of Annapolis. This supplemental appropriation is just for those businesses within our community, and we believe this would alleviate that burden, which could significantly impact their ability to compete with other firms. This is also in part for a residential program, but that is less so the focus of this particular funding at the moment. Any questions?
Yeah, go ahead.
I do. Thank you very much. 2 questions for you. Have you decided on an amount per business, or is it going to be dependent on requests? How are we going to figure out who gets what?
So at the moment, my understanding is that we would like to make businesses eligible for $1,500. And that would just be, that basically covers half the cost of a commercial electric leaf blower. However, depending on the sort of applications that we're getting, the fund could be flexible. But this is modeling what Montgomery County had done. And then for residents, it would be about $100 for electric leaf blowers.
And have you started receiving applications yet, or no?
No, we have not put out any sort of program yet, pending on whether or not this is funded.
Okay, thank you.
Of course.
Mr. Chair, if I might, could I ask you to repeat the amounts? Well, let me ask first, is there a program that you've designed already, or are you replicating what the county does?
We are not replicating what any jurisdiction has done. We've taken some inspiration from Montgomery County and Hyattsville. However, this is our own unique program, which we think fits the city the very best. The amounts would be $1,500 for city businesses, city landscaping companies, and $100, potentially $50 if we get a lot of applications from residents, but right now $100 for residents.
So we won't know until the number of applicants come in how much they'd actually get.
We can set a hard number of $100.
So is there a plan that I could go to or anyone could go to? You're shaking your head yes, and she's shaking her head no. So tell me which is the correct answer.
We've created a plan, and that was the plan that which we communicated to the Environmental Matters Committee, but we don't have a program online yet.
Okay,
And I can send you that plan again.
thank you.
Yeah, go ahead.
I've had questions from 2 constituents who've asked if you would consider retroactive. For instance, they purchased equipment last year right after hearing about the ban. And they've asked, since we are discussing a voucher program, if they would be eligible.
No, we do not have that in the program for this.
Jackie Gile, Deputy City Manager for Resilience and Sustainability. So we don't have a set program yet. We had an outline we prepared for the Environmental Matters Committee when we developed it, several options. So we have an outline of the program. So that is something new that I saw that you had suggested. That's something we can consider. That's not something we had anticipated when we developed this program. We can consider it. Obviously, we don't know in this first year how many applications we will receive. So we've set this number. We think that is a good number at $1,500 for commercial businesses, because as Mr. Lakonish has said, $1,500 is about half the cost of a good quality commercial electric leaf blower, and $100 for residents, because that's about half of a good quality residential style leaf blower. We think that the commercial businesses will definitely avail themselves of the program, and to some extent the residential businesses will. We are trying to gear this more towards commercial businesses because their leaf blowers are much more expensive, and this is part of their business model. Obviously, they have to buy leaf blowers, and to comply with this, residents, it's not as important to them. Obviously, it's not a business decision. So we're still in the process of determining the final look of the program, so that we can consider that. After we run this program for a year, we will have a better idea of how many applicants there actually were and where they were coming from, commercial or from residential. So We may decide not to make it retroactive in the first year so we can accommodate everyone. If it turns out that there were less applications than we anticipated, we might be able to make it more retroactive even. But we'll consider it. We'll run the numbers again and see if we can consider doing that.
All right. I think the argument that's going to come out is that people that actually follow what
Right.
is going on in the city and are doing what they're supposed to be doing
Right.
are technically not eligible for the benefit of people that have been dragging their heels.
Right. And I understand that. It's perfectly legitimate. So that's something we will consider. It's not, like, as I said, we had not anticipated that, but it's a valid point. So we will consider that.
Thank you.
Thank you for bringing that point up.
May I ask a question, I guess, of the assistant city manager? This sounds like it could potentially be arbitrary. Is that what we want to put out to the community, that maybe we'll consider it?
No, that's not what I'm saying at all. We will have a firm program. Once we make the rules, it won't be, maybe we'll consider your application. We will establish the rules and put out the program. So we'll have firm rules that it will or will not be retroactive once we put out the rules for the program.
Okay,
right now,
what I heard you say was we'll decide.
We'll decide before we put out the program to the
Okay,
public.
as your design, and that was my original question.
Right,
Is
but-
there a program that is in place that we could look at to
But
see?
Alderwoman, yeah.
You're telling me that you're still deciding on,
Right, we're still developing the final program, and Alderwoman O'Neill, and just recently in the last couple of weeks, brought this point to our attention, which I think is a valid point for us to consider in developing the final parameters of the program.
okay, her last question was about retroactive.
Right, and I think that's a good point, and something we should consider, something we had not anticipated originally.
And that is my point exactly. If you're still considering it, when will that decision be made so that the community will know that they're eligible or not?
Well, we have not put anything out to the public yet. So this program is not even publicly available yet. So so I don't think that it's something that we have to decide this week or even next week. But I don't think we have up until we put this out to the public to make that decision.
Okay, so do we have a timeline for that?
We would like to make it available as soon as possible, but we need to decide if the Resilience Authority is going to be working with us to do that. So we'll be speaking with the Resilience Authority this week and trying to have them decide if, I think they need board approval on this first. And they need to come to a decision whether they will be working with us to implement the program.
You know, this is my concern, and it has been all along, that we are talking about a program and talking about developing a program now for months, and we still don't have the right players at the table to make the final decisions. So I just want a timeline as
Right,
to
I
when we
understand.
when we can expect that to be ready for the rollout, I guess.
Right, so we would, if the city, either the Resilience Authority will do it, and if they won't, then the city will do it ourselves with our staff. And we would have liked to have rolled this out in January, but we did need to have funding secured in order to do that. So we could not say we were rolling this out in January without funding secured. So we think we can get this rolled out by March, is what we plan to do. That's why when City Council decided they would delay citation enforcement by 3 months, we set a deadline on ourselves that we would get this out no later than March so that people could start buying electric leaf blowers, because enforcement would start with 3-month delay, January 22nd, that gives us 3 months, April 22nd. So we would allow, if we can get this out, a program out by March 22nd, that gives commercial businesses and residents a month. And it also gives businesses, retailers, time to start ordering electric leaf blowers so that they are available to people by March to purchase.
So I'm hearing March, so that's what I'll look forward
Yes,
to.
that's what we're aiming for.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
In your opinion, either of you, is there any other lawn maintenance equipment that we should be subsidizing?
Well, they're available. There's different kinds of lawn equipment. There are electric lawnmowers, there are electric weed whackers, there are various different kinds of electric lawn maintenance equipment, and they have interchangeable battery packs. That's what is making them much more usable now, so that you can switch your battery pack between the different kinds of equipment that you have. So you don't have to have a different battery pack for
Sure.
your, well, lawnmowers are different. But if you have an electric leaf blower, you can switch it out between your electric weed whacker, et cetera.
My weed whacker and my drill.
Did you want to
Yeah,
add something to
gotcha.
that?
But really, my question is, I mean, if we're going to subsidize electric leaf blowers, should we subsidize anything else? Rakes or lawnmowers or, I mean, why just leaf blowers?
This is in response to the ordinance which prohibited gas-powered leaf blowers. So we want to make sure that people who are using that equipment can.
So what about rakes? Or, I mean, you can have a way, you can address leaves by mulching them in place. Would it be beneficial for the program to include either of those?
Well, this program is particularly oriented towards commercial use, and I don't believe that the commercial market is going to want to use any sort of conventional, non-powerful equipment.
And are there any other, we have a list here of all of our one-time fund balance appropriations. Are there any other projects on this list that you think could use that $105,000 better?
I think this $105,000 is appropriate for the response to the complaints that we've received to the ordinance, which prohibited the gas-powered leaf blowers.
Any other questions for you? No. All right. Do I see a motion to approve this?
Mr. Chair, I'll make a recommendation to give SA 2325 a favorable recommendation.
Second?
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, nay. Motion passes. Thank you.
Thank you very
Chair,
much.
did you vote nay?
I did vote nay.
Okay.
All right, moving along. First up is R 5424, changes in positioning, classifications, and pay plan. And this is not dealing with the executive pay schedules. This is our blanking on the word, non-exempt staff. This is the other one. It's not our executive one. Thank you for being here with us today, Ms. Hopkins.
Tricia Hopkins, Human Resources Manager. So this is for our civil service.
Yes, thank you. That's the word I was looking for.
That's the words you were looking for, yeah.
So this is what we ended our last meeting discussing, and I think we had relatively fewer questions on this one compared to the other one, but I think there were still a few questions that my colleagues had. So I will just open the floor to resume that discussion.
Well, may
go ahead,
I, Ms. Hopkins, I'm trying to figure out which piece of legislation has the change of the name for the staff assistant or the
it's this one.
council. That's the next one.
It's this
Okay.
one.
It's
So
this-
that is
this
in
term.
civil service. It is in the position summary in 54.
Okay, then, Mr. Chair, and I'm looking for it, I would make a
So-
motion, it's on page 9 of 12,
Yes.
that we restore the original title. And 1521 is, I guess, the class number.
Yes.
It currently, the recommendation is legislative administrative assistant, which sounds like something that takes away the council's assistant. I mean, this position was designed by the council for the council. And any opportunity to diminish that is concerning. So I would make a motion that we restore the original title to city council
So noted.
associate.
Thank
I
you.
will second your motion, but I'd like to hear some discussion about why that change was made. I think this is right where we ended last time, if I remember.
It was, and I really, in all honesty, think that was a direction that the consultants took to kind of make a distinction, as I sort of alluded to last time, a distinction between the legislative branch and and those that are part of the executive responsibilities of departments. And honestly, I have no attachment to that. I mean, if you feel strongly about it, that's not something I feel that I need to strongly defend differently, and won't. So if that's your desire, that makes great sense. And it's something we'll just make a note of. And hopefully, as we go through all of these changes, you'll know also that I'm trying to work with departments and their reactions and the whole thing, and would want to consolidate any changes to this legislation so that we all feel cleanly we can whip through any amendments and any changes that make good sense, we all feel comfortable with, and go forward.
Excellent.
I appreciate that, and I'm sure the consultants didn't know the history on how that position was created.
And it's unlikely that they would necessarily, so, it's fine. We want all that should go into the mix to go into the mix.
I think we had another
Well,
question,
is
but
there any further discussion on your amendment, Alderman O'Neill?
Nope.
No? Then
Okay.
let's vote on that amendment
Absolutely.
first. So so you motioned, I seconded. I'll call for a vote on the motion to amend this legislation on page 9 to remove the change to what was previously called the city council associate. So keep it that, no longer change it to legislative administrative assistant. All those in favor of the amendment, say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Excellent. So now we can go back to other conversations about the legislation. I'll turn it back to Alderman Finley.
I'm trying to recall, it wasn't our staff person, but there was another department. I think my question the last time was whether the department heads weighed in on making the changes. I understand the career ladder changes, which is something that we've, been trying to get to for many years. But other changes, I just want to make sure the directors are comfortable with the changes that are being made. I don't want the changes to be made to them. I want them to be made with their agreement and even recommendation.
And to that end, all of the consultant work around job descriptions, which includes titling, is back out to the directors. And so I'm making sure that we're navigating that and all of the conversations that may result from it. A lot of the changes, though, really were more directed from the exchanges with directors. So you can trust that those that don't have issue are already settled through that. The career ladders and the naming of the career ladders, the series that are there, know also that I'm making sure I get answers around, well, why this many in this category, why that many in another category, so that we're accounting for all of the reasonable levels in the career ladders that are being recommended. So I want you to know and trust that I'm making sure that's another conversation, and we're comfortable with those results as part of this.
I now recall my other question, and I probably didn't ask it. Are we taking out deputies and putting in assistants? Are we doing away with deputies? I'm looking at the harbor master. We had a deputy harbor master. I remember one time the council clearly decided we weren't going to have any deputies. And then over time, deputies have kind of crept back into the vernacular. So what's the strategy, the plan? Are we eliminating all deputies and changing them to assistants, or is that unique to each department?
So what we are is recognizing the level, the status level in our organization. And so to that end, the second level position below a director that is truly functioning as a one-to-one ratio, that those individuals' positions will be called deputy whatever, and that if they are not in a department head to deputy level arrangement, we have been going through and making some naming convention changes to assistant. Now, we realize that assistant harbor master, that's affected what they call their part-time, but we will resolve all of that separately. But that is the naming convention that we are pursuing. We feel that that came out of the discussion that we had earlier, before we embarked on this study, and we asked the consultants to make sure that that was part of the work that they did.
Well, and I understand that, and I appreciate the logic behind that. It just occurred to me, the third department that was, I don't want to say demoted, but moved from a department to an office, and it was the harbor master. HR, IT, and the harbor master. And for weeks, I've been trying to think of that third department. The harbor master was a department in itself many years ago.
Many years ago, yeah. I wasn't able to find IT as a separate department. I must say that out
IT
loud.
was a separate
Yeah.
department, HR was a separate
Yeah.
department, and,
Well, HR was more recent, yeah.
well, I think they were all changed at the same time, if my memory serves me correctly. And I can tell you, but I'd rather not, what administration did that, but, but they were all changed to.
Yeah, and that might have been a holdover with the titling for
Yeah.
that, and it just didn't get changed.
Yeah.
But again, we had an opportunity here. We did a citywide class and comp study. This is where we have the option of making sure we can do all those little itty bitty changes that give us an opportunity to look at a title and say, oh, well, that's where that position resides in the organization. We don't have all departments set up that way, however. We don't have every department operating with a number 2. Some departments, Recreation Parks is a good example. They have parks separate from recreation. Planning and zoning is similar in that it doesn't feel a need to have a second level because there are functional assignments at lower levels across the organization. And so when you have that, you don't need to artificially create that 1-to-1 ratio and everybody has a deputy. If it works that well, and that is the way it operates, and that is the way the span of control works well for that department, then that's what we should continue to honor. We shouldn't just adjust it for the sake of adjustment. We don't have money around the city to just create another position and say, okay, there's your number 2, and you also have this division, by the way. So we're trying not to layer up the organization or the city. We're trying to more realistically reflect for those departments that do have a number 2 and those departments that don't, how they operate and give appropriate titling as a result.
As long as we're consistent. But I do remember the day when Rex and Parks did have a deputy. I don't know what Mr. Thomas was called, but he was the number 2 man under Leanne Plummer, who was the director at the time. And likewise, Sally Nash was the number 2 person in the planning department. And those 2 people were responsible when the directors were
Yeah.
not available.
And so the
whatever.
titling didn't necessarily reflect it. The person might have been the one called up to perform that function. Again, we're trying to be realistic and have good naming, make good naming decisions for these positions so that when somebody does make an inquiry, they know what is the functional arrangement, what the career ladder or the career, what do we call that? What their workflow looks like.
As long as we're consistent.
Yeah.
We just seem to be going round, I guess it's the trend of the time, when we have them and then we don't have them, and then we have them again. I just want us to be consistent and consistent across all departments, so everyone knows what to expect. And I see this assistant city manager. Are you a deputy city manager?
We're not prepared.
That's the next,
Yeah, no.
I know.
No, I just wanted to clarify that there were no deputy level positions created.
Correct.
New. The only thing that really we're talking about is naming conventions, but we didn't actually create any brand new number 2. Yeah.
And I wasn't suggesting that.
I just wanted to make sure.
I understand, it's just,
Yeah.
it's the vernacular that
All
we're
good.
using. But I just, again, want us to be consistent with what we do across all departments, because that was the impetus behind changes 10 years ago.
Yeah.
Because we didn't have parity across all departments. So as long as this is demonstrating that, and it's really hard, at least for me to follow, to make sure.
Well, there are so many ways to organize this information. And when you're trying to pull out a specific component of it, it's just best for us to run you a different report in a different different order, so you can answer the questions you're trying to answer with a spreadsheet that's sorted otherwise.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Chair.
Alderwoman O'Neill, do you have questions?
I don't think so.
I have a quick one that's really more curiosity. I'm looking at page 3, and I'm just curious. I see the police communications operator 2 switched from the A schedule to the N schedule, and then the police property coordinator
It was
switched
just a
from
mistake from the prior.
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
So it's just
it's correcting mistake.
Got it. Well,
Yeah.
so then why is it that the police communications operator 1 is A9, but the police communications operator 2 is
Because
N11?
it functions as a shift supervisor. And
Gotcha.
then you get into definitions around which positions can be represented and which ones should not be.
Got it. Thank you. Appreciate it. Do I see any more discussion on this?
I don't think so, Mr. Chair. I think I'm prepared to make a motion that we give a favorable recommendation with the amendment from the Finance Committee to R 5424.
Oh, and we do have an amendment from Alderman Savage. We should
Oh, okay.
probably consider.
I thought we did
Is that included in what we were looking at?
I think we did that last week. Didn't we? No?
I don't think so.
So did we make a motion and approve it last time?
I'm pretty sure we did not last time.
Ms.
So-
Jackson? No.
Do you mind sharing what that was?
Yeah, sure. It's changing the environmental program coordinator to
Title.
Yeah, the title to 3 different grades of environmental program coordinator. So from it being just 1 at N12 to being a 1, 2, and 3 at N12, N13, and 14.
Manager, not coordinator.
That has not been through our just so you know, that has not been through our consultants, to see if that's the manner in which we would rename and establish layers to it. So I'm throwing that out there, that there's some interim opportunity here to also go back and ask for some assistance in that, so that our career ladder development is consistent across the city as well.
Well, then may I ask, is there an opportunity after this legislation is passed or not, to go back and make this recommendation? Would it then go to the Civil Service Board, or who would come back with the recommendation after vetting these positions?
So as we said in the delivery of the report by the consultants, in the future, when we're not actively engaged in a class and comp study, we will have tools, the HR department will have tools to use to make determinations around both market analysis and evaluation of positions according to a factor evaluation system, which will then be useful to us in keeping the consistency across this citywide study, and then be able to do them on a case-by-case basis afterwards.
And in addition to that, obviously, there's an annual process through council that's part of the budget process. So every year, there's an opportunity to refresh that is built in, where you just always have that opportunity every year.
Yeah.
And my working assumption has been that, especially when it comes to the career ladders, that we are likely to see some additional ones as we implement this first round, to see some interest in some additional ones. So my assumption is that we'll continue to see if some edits into the future. But obviously, that opportunity for council for this to come back to council and have those revisions. At the very least, there's an annual process. And if something was
Yeah.
urgent, we'd have the ability.
I just think it's very helpful to us in HR if we know about them before they're appearing as amendments, because then we can do the work, then we can do the piece of this that matters most, and that's making sure that it's been evaluated like other positions get evaluated. I don't expect you to take on that role yourselves. I don't expect you to show up with that full understanding. I do expect that is a very real responsibility of the Human Resources Department to make that, or division, to make that happen. So it's something that we hope that there's like plenty of lead time to address, that's not, it's kind of hard for all of us in the crunch of budget to then pull away and do good work around suggestions. And I just hope that we get a little better lead time on such elements as that. And
Would there have been an opportunity for Alderman Savage to bring this to the consultants as they were evaluating all of these positions?
probably not directly, but through HR for sure.
Yeah,
That's something we would, I don't know, we'll talk about the methodology, but, that would be.
Mr. Chair, I'm going to make a motion that we give an unfavorable to Amendment 1 to request that the sponsor send it back to the HR department as well as to the Assistant City Manager, so that these positions go through the normal rigor that the other positions went through when we were creating the career ladder.
I would just say we can also just take no action on it rather than recommending it unfavorably. And then Alderman Savage could have the opportunity to go back, get input on it from HR, and then we could review it at the council meeting rather than recommending it unfavorably.
Well, taking no action doesn't indicate, at least my feelings about why it should not go forward. So I would hesitate to take no action. That's not, is that the message you want to send? That's not the message I want to send. The message I want to send is that it didn't go through proper processes to vet these positions before making an amendment. And that's just what the director said.
I would note that this was on our agenda last week. It's not like it just showed up today, but yes, I hear you.
Well, but it did just show up after the resolution was drafted.
Right.
And it did not go through the process with the consultants.
Yep. Okay, well, there's a motion on the floor to unfavorably recommend Amendment 1. Is there a second to it?
I'll second.
All right. All those in favor of issuing an unfavorable recommendation to Amendment 1, say aye.
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 All those opposed, say nay. Nay. All right, Amendment 1 fails. And, but again, of course, we could still amend it on the floor if Alderman Savage goes through the process.
I have
Yes.
a really quick question. In regards to that, I know we talked about it at our last meeting, that there were a couple of positions that were voted on and budgeted and approved by the council during the budget process that aren't included in here because this process had already started. And at least for a couple of the positions, I feel really strongly that we need to get those. If what's holding it up is a job description, I can Google a short-term rental manager position for any of the other cities that.
May I ask the question, was that approved as a civil service position or if it's an employment agreement position, we have a lot more discretion. We have the ability, you can please send me your job description or information that you have. We're happy to use that, but we can pull that together very quickly. I just didn't personally understand whether that is, I don't know if Jake can speak to that.
I see Mr. Trudeau. How you doing?
Good, how are you? Thank you. Budget Manager Jake Trudeau. If you're referring to the Housing Quality Liaison, is that what you're referring to, that position? It was an amendment by Alderman Gay, I believe.
No, it's the position for short-term rental manager, that we increase the fees for short-term rental applications in order to pay for that position
Okay, in planning and zoning.
in planning and zoning. And that position has not been advertised or filled, and I'm told from the director that it's because the director's being told that there's not a job description, therefore it doesn't fall on the pay scale, and until this is passed and approved. Meanwhile, our short-term rental climate is a mess. We've got short-term rentals popping up everywhere. There's nobody truly to manage them because we don't have that position filled.
So I don't recall that one off the top of my head. Let me do some research and see how it was written, if it was intended to be an employment agreement or
And we
civil
can
service.
definitely talk that through.
Absolutely.
With Director Jakubiec.
Yes,
I'm
thank
seeing
you.
Director Dickinson also wanting to jump in.
So there was another issue with this position. When that amendment was put through and there was a designated increase to the fee for the revenue side, we put the fee into the schedule of fees, but never added to the expense side of the budget to pay for a person. So, not that they couldn't fit it in their budget somehow. That's not the analysis. The analysis I would like to do before we do that is to prove that the increase in the permit fee is generating enough income to pay for the extra position. And when we got the position, besides the issue with the definition of the position and that type of thing, is that I want to make sure that we are collecting the increased fee and enough to cover that position, because that was presented at the very last minute of the budget process, and we had not really analyzed whether that was going to pay for what they wanted.
In all due respect, it's a vicious cycle, because that position's never going to pay for itself if that position is not working. Because working and actually going after the illegal short-term rentals is what's going to help
I
increase
agree.
that fee.
And I do agree this is something that's needed. And when the request came across the desk, we started looking into where it would be in the budget, and if we have enough history at the time. We started talking about it early in the fall, and we didn't have enough history with the increased permit fee to see how much that was bringing in.
Okay.
So yes, the more it works, the more they'll bring in, and so I
If we have
understand
the
it's a vicious
position, they'll
cycle.
be bringing in the money. Right now, they're not bringing in the money. We're actually losing money, because I know of at least 6 illegal short-term rentals that are taking place that we are not collecting tax on, and we're not collecting application fees on. They're being rented every single weekend, so I'm guessing the tax is probably in the thousands of dollars on a single rental over the course of a year. So I'm just saying, if we can get that position, we'll actually be able to see the revenue side.
So would it be beneficial, or let me phrase it this way. If that position is not added into this resolution, then will we be in a position later that it is going to make it more difficult to fill that position because they are not in this resolution, in this pay scale?
And if I
I
might, I
think
would
that-
add to that,
and
this
that-
and other positions that have been requested.
So I don't, that's a second issue, but as far as this position is concerned, I don't know if you intended for it to be contractual. That might be an easier lift than setting up a civil service position with a title and a description. So that's an HR question, but, you know, we bring on people contractually on a regular basis to fill certain needs.
I would suggest that direction, go to the employment agreement first. It gives us a great deal of, well, it allows us to punt faster, for sure. It allows us to kind of work out the kinks of it. It sounds like an evolving kind of position. So that maybe what we first consider the way we describe it and assign work to it and actually compensate the position gives us a chance to get a little more comfortable with all of that before we get to the civil service component of it. It's just, I see that from a business perspective, a healthy way to get started.
Right.
And
I appreciate that, and my feeling is, here it is, December 18th. It was passed in July 1st, and this discussion really should have been happening in July and August.
Yeah.
Because we knew of the desperate need. So for future, I think when positions or revisions like that have been changed, we should have some sort of trigger so that we are addressing those early on. Because I've been told since September that the position is on hold until this is done. And it sounds like you have a better option.
And it's about options, right? It's really about being creative within your bureaucracy to make things occur that you have a vision for. But it sounds like we have some elements that we want to make sure we got in place. And for my role, I will show up and assist.
Thank you.
Mr. Trudeau, you have something to add?
I just wanted to answer your question, the question that I think you're asking. Let's say if you pass this, you could always come back with another resolution for a position, if that was where your thought process was.
No, I
That's all.
appreciate that. It's just, it will be,
Sure.
would be easier to add one in now
I hear you.
rather than have a whole separate resolution.
Sure.
Yeah. Alderman Finlayson?
Oh,
Is this a question for Jake?
I'm not sure.
Okay.
There's often something missing, a link between what we do and what staff does. We set policies, create positions, and then there's no trigger for staff, whether it's because the Civil Service Board hasn't been, brought into the loop. There's always something missing. Like the positions that we created in the budget, but they never translate into actions by no fault of anyone. So my question is, if we make this position contractual, which seems to be the quicker route to get that person in the position and doing the job, what does it take to make that happen tomorrow?
Like,
And the finance director's gone. She would be a pivotal point of this, or Mr. Trudeau, whomever, how do we make this happen now? We've had the discussion, but I don't see a real trigger to implement it.
Are you in this particular scenario? So with the position that Alderwoman O'Neill is mentioning?
Would you turn your mic on?
I'm
please?
sorry, the position that Alderwoman O'Neill is mentioning in this particular scenario. So I think that internally we need to do some analysis and make sure that in their current budget as it stands, maybe could they absorb that? Or do we need to come before you and say, until we see the revenue coming in, we need to find an alternate funding source. I believe it's doable. It's just we need to internally figure out the course of action to take. There is an action to take. It's just we need to figure out what's the best one to take. Like Director Dickinson said, we haven't had a chance to analyze that fee, but Alderwoman O'Neill made a valid point, right? Like, how are we collecting the fee if there's no one there to enforce that? So we need to talk, and again, we just need to talk internally and find a way forward.
I think, I'll speak from my own perspective. I think that we need to have a serious discussion about the post-budget vote period. Mr. Trudeau had put together the list of here are the net new positions and stuff, but a lot of our time has ended up kind of going into getting the class and comp study itself done. And so there's some follow through that I will take on, that I know there's some pieces that I didn't do that I think I should do. And I'm probably not the only one who feels that way. But I think that the frustration that you all are feeling is understandable. And I think that that's, obviously it's coming across as an excuse, but there's always stuff, right? This year was class and comp, but next year is going to be something else. And that in some ways is part of why having a good process is helpful, is so that you don't end up losing sight of some things in the midst of whatever the current thing that's taking a lot of time and energy. So I certainly would like to commit us to working on that process to have that work better. Because you're not wrong. Your frustration's not wrong.
Well, thank you. That's all I'm looking for, is how to mend that or make that connection between what we do and what we've imposed on staff. And I use my terminology deliberately. So, thank you.
Thank you.
Alderwoman O'Neill, do you think it would be worthwhile for there to be an amendment here to add the short-term rental manager, or should we stick with what we're hearing, that we want to go more the contractual route?
I believe if it will be done quicker, the contractual route is the best way, so I will not provide a further amendment at this time.
Okay.
Can I?
Oh yeah, jump on in.
I just want to interject. Alderwoman Finlayson had asked earlier about the naming conventions and kind of inclusion of staff in that conversation. Obviously, any kind of change that we end up making, not everyone is 100% on board with that. There are obviously some feelings, and some of that is around titling. Jackie's here. I know that the change in the deputy harbor master position, I know that that isn't actually sitting very well with them. We ended up making that recommendation consistent for the sake of consistency. But Jackie, if you want to have an opportunity to, just because I think it's fair for you to know, we are trying to navigate different points of view, and this is one of the different points of view that we're trying to navigate.
Well, and my question, my comment was grounded in the fact that the council had made a decision about deputies.
Yeah.
And that I'm seeing us moving away from, we're not moving away from that. We're just all over the map. Some departments have them, some departments don't. And I'm hoping, and from what Ms. Hopkins said, that the company has tried to create a pattern so that it is noted that some departments have deputies, and I'm using departments and offices interchangeably, and I probably should not, but some have deputies, some have assistants. We just need to be consistent with them all.
Yes, thank you. So the harbor master's office, as the consultant pointed out many times over, they found them to be sort of, they called a unicorn. They couldn't find a harbor master's office, to compare them to. And they are very different because there are not a lot of harbor masters in the U.S., and especially of this size of a harbor. Usually you're thinking of a commercial-sized harbor, not one that's recreationally sized like ours is. And they have both a recreational aspect, they have a safety aspect, there's event planning, there is an enforcement aspect. So they have a lot of duties, and some harbor masters have one of those duties or two of those duties, but not all of the duties that our harbor master has. And we're also working around a lot of events. So they really didn't find them comparable to any other harbor master. So they were kind of cut and pasting around, trying to really find salaries and how they should grade them and how they should choose titles for them, actually. So when they were looking at the harbor master, one thing I wanted to say, especially about, I understand that Beth Bellis, our harbor master, is not a director. There's been a deputy harbor master in that position for many years. But that position is very different from our deputy directors that we have in departments. The deputy directors they stand in for our directors for prolonged absences, illness, vacation, or whatever it is, when they need to, and become acting directors at times. The deputy harbor master steps in and acts as the harbor master almost on a daily basis, whenever the harbor master is not there. The deputy harbor master steps directly into those shoes. Because of the way that their schedules work and their responsibilities in that office, the deputy harbor master and the harbor master are very much the same position. So the deputy harbor master almost daily works as the harbor master. So it's very different from a deputy director position. So I really don't think you can compare that position to the second level position and other departments. So when we want to change that position from deputy to assistant, I understand completely why Mr. Northfield feels like this is a big demotion. I completely understand that. So I really think that we need to be a little flexible with this unicorn that we have and perhaps leave it alone.
I think one of the hazards of the comp and class study and the company that we brought in was trying to put us in a box.
Exactly.
All of our departments are very unique. The city is very unique. You know, we try to compare ourselves to Salisbury and Gaithersburg and Ocean City, and we don't match with any of those or any other city in this country. So the fact that they were trying to find a harbor master's office someplace in the country that did what our harbor masters do, I think was inappropriate. We have a unique position in that we can design our program, our department, based upon our needs. Never mind what everybody else does. Totally based upon the needs of the city. And so to try to, compare us to others and because we don't fit, we're not going to fit. We shouldn't fit. So we should evaluate, and that's what I was assuming, that our departments are being evaluated in our own little sphere of what we do and what's required, and what the council demands of them by virtue of our budget. So, I understand the deputy in the harbor master's office is very different from the deputy in DPW, because that was changed also. So, we shouldn't get into the habit of saying they're all the same. The titles may be the same, but the levels of responsibility are vastly different. And we should respect that fact. And we should count on HR to give us the job description or whatever the Civil Service Board has designed to delineate what those departments and those deputies and those assistants have responsibility for. So I don't want us to be compared to everybody else because we don't fit. I did have another question, but I'm trying to find it.
I just think it's worthwhile to know while you're looking for that question that while the title change might feel like an emotion, we're actually increasing the grade there, which seems totally appropriate to me from the description. So I just wanted to flag that for my colleagues here.
I had a comment on that as well.
Yeah, sure. Hit me.
The grade, again, is not commensurate with the level of responsibility. The grade is increasing one step, but the harbor master herself is a grade 18, and this is only increasing to a 15. He, in fact, is stepping into her role every day, quite often. And so I believe that grade should be reexamined as well. That's not commensurate with the level of responsibility that that person is executing.
Thank you.
Would this constitute an amendment?
If one of you wanted to make one, I think we could have an amendment that would change the grade or the title for the, whatever we want to call it, second in command in the harbor master office.
Can you tell me what position where I'm looking for?
We're looking at page 4. I believe it's class number 8004.
What was the class number?
8004. It's the fourth one from the bottom. I appreciate the feedback. I see us increasing the grade by 2, which is as much as we do for anybody else in this, if I looked at it correctly. And I'm hesitant to jump it up by significantly more than that at a time.
Well, did we not hear, I'm sorry if I might.
No, go ahead.
From Ms. Hopkins that offices are treated different from departments?
So
Is that what I,
divisions.
so divisions or offices? Or are there 3 different classes now, the offices, divisions, and departments?
So directors serve at a department.
Could you turn your mic on, please?
Sorry, I thought it was on. So all of our directors serve departments. We call the Office of Human Resources work because we're not a department right now. We typically, it's really the Department of Law, although we sometimes refer to it as the Office of Law. So I don't really think there's a clean and appropriate distinction between an office and a department in this city. But when we have divisions that are operating below a department level, sometimes they're referred to as offices.
See, like Rex and Parks has divisions within their,
Yes, they have a Parks Division and a
Right.
Recreation Division. So the Harbor Master is a division within the City Manager's office currently. It
okay.
has served in the past as a division in the Police Department, as a division in the Recreation and Parks Department, and is now assigned to the City Manager.
And prior to that, a separate department, before it went to Rex and
Yeah, and
Parks.
that's before my time. I've been
Yeah, I
here
know,
11 and a
but not
half
before
years.
my time,
I haven't known that.
But they were a separate department before
Okay.
they went to Rex and Parks.
I'd just like to briefly correct my previous statement. There is one other situation, the permits administrator, which is jumping 3 grades.
And, Mr. Chair, I'm comfortable with the recommendations because I feel that they have been all vetted. These come from the consultants. They've done the research. We may disagree with some titles, but I'm not in a position to change the grades because I think the thorough research has been done on those. I could be wrong, but that's my impression.
No, I think I roughly agree with you, Alderman Finlayson. I'm sort of split on this one, and so the tie is going to go to how the experts have it. But I really do appreciate hearing from our deputy city manager about why she sees it both ways, and I think that's worthwhile. Any other comments, Alderwoman O'Neill? All right, seeing none, do we have a motion to approve R 5424?
As amended.
As amended with the City Council Associate Amendment, but not with the Savage Amendment.
Correct.
Yeah.
With the Finance Committee's
Yes.
recommendation.
Is there a motion for the Finance Committee to approve it with the Finlayson Amendment, but not the Savage Amendment?
I will make the motion that we give a favorable recommendation
Thank you.
to R54 as amended by the Finance Committee.
Oh, I see how you're saying it. Yes, thank you.
Second.
All right, all those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. Motion passes.
Thank you.
Alderman Finlayson, do you say you have to be done at 45?
I do, I have to be
Okay.
somewhere at noon, I
Then-
gotta drive, I'm sorry.
I think we will need to postpone R 5324. Do we need a motion to do that, Caleb? Yes. Okay. We got something?
Not just, this data had been asked for earlier, I'm just providing it. And
Excellent, thank you.
for next time.
Thank
Wonderful.
you.
Thank you very much. Do I see a motion to postpone R 5324 to the next meeting of the Finance Committee?
So moved.
Second,
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye. All right. That said, the last thing on our agenda is a Finance Department update. So, Director Dickinson, you got any brilliant insights to share in the past week?
Since it's only been a week, it pretty much is the same as I reported last week. Just a little bit of progress on the annual audit. We're answering their final questions and giving them support for some of their samples they've chosen, so that's underway. Again, we're looking into next year for the actual financial statement publication. Staffing, nothing new from last week. We're a little further along on the finance director process, but I don't have a lot of details there because we're not done talking to candidates and doing the interviewing. So, and just the budget process being underway. Departments are supposed to have their first submission on December 31, correct? So we'll see how that goes. And the beginning of the year, we'll be able to start accumulating that and evaluating what the needs are.
I'm sorry, the thing that's due on the 31st, can you repeat that?
Departmental budget submissions, they do the initial submission for their request in our OpenGov software, and then we start reviewing that information.
Excellent, thank you.
May I ask a quick question?
Yeah, for sure, as long as you're the one who's got to get out of
I know. Ms. Dickinson, I think you were out of the room when we had the discussion about moving the short-term rental position to a contract position. Is there an essay that's needed to be able to do that?
So whether or not it's a contract position or a civil service position does not affect where the budget would go. The budget's going to be in planning and zoning. There was not money put in there, but I would say we would want to look at their budget progress this year to see if it's even needed, because of turnover for vacant positions may have exceeded what we had in there to begin with. And then if they needed additional funding to cover the person that we put in the position, we would evaluate it later on in the fiscal year to see if they're going to need funding. Like on the fourth quarter transfer request, we move monies around between departments for those that are running short.
But my question had to do with their ability to use it for contract.
So whether we have a contractual,
As opposed to a civil service position.
it doesn't affect where it's charged. It all hits the same account. So those are two separate issues, whether or not, how we fill it and what it's called. And it's going into the same budget account. So we would evaluate it with salaries, because contractual employees actually are charged to the salary account.
So they can move forward with that position as a contract position without anything that needs to be done.
Correct.
Thank you. All right.
I'll just add to your update that we are going to have our first work session for council budget priorities on January 16th. I'm very excited for that. I think particularly the members of the Finance Committee want to come with some clear priorities. I'm going to encourage all of the council members to come with kind of 3 top priorities, and we can discuss them, but I'm looking forward to doing that, and I'm really glad that we're going to be able to, I think, do it in person, thanks to the changes in the schedule for updating some of the technology here. So looking forward to that. Anything else for the good of the order?
I'd like to wish everyone a happy, safe holiday and a prosperous new year.
Amen to that. Do I see a motion to adjourn?
Motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor say aye.
Aye.
Aye.